Hey everybody, and thanks for watching Woodcrest Bonsai. Today I'm going to defoliate this narrow leaf ficus. Defoliating does a couple of things. It helps reduce the leaf size, and this tree already has leaves that are typically smaller than normal. Let me see if I can find a normal sized leaf. So let's see, we're cutting off so the difference is not that big, but we're cutting off small leaves. This came off this tree, and this came off a tree that's just in training that has not had leaf reduction. So one beauty of narrow leaf ficus is that it already has a very naturally small leaf, and that is probably what makes it really good bonsai. Plus, as a ficus, you know, it's a tropical tree, but they're also very tough. So they can take a certain amount of dryness and a certain amount of poor soil. And if you get to fertilize them, they're going to grow anyway. So they make great beginner bonsai if you live in an area where you're either tropical or, you know, mild. Because I live in Zone 10 in the United States, but that is still not considered tropical as far as climate is concerned, because we still do get the potential for some freezing. But if you do live in a mild climate, or you have good wintertime protection, the narrow leaf ficus is a fantastic bonsai. And so this is just the part of bonsai that can be very meditative. Obviously, as I'm doing this, I want to continue to talk on the video, but if I was just in my garden just doing this, it'd be in silence, and it can be very contemplative, it can be very meditative. You can sort of lose yourself in the tree. And I may not take off every single leaf. Leaving some of the smaller leaves on is not that big of a deal. And since my camera only has 15 minutes of memory, I may not even finish in that amount of time. But you get the idea. So what happens is when a tree detects that all the leaves have been removed, new buds will emerge. And those buds will typically produce smaller leaves. There'll be more of them, but they will be smaller. So, and defoliation is something that you don't want to do constantly, because it does create a certain amount of stress for the tree. Another positive aspect of defoliation is you can really see your branch structure. And so you can decide if you want to keep some branches or if you want to remove some branches. And I've talked about how I hate ficus sap, and here I am picking leaves off with my fingers. And as is typical, I start in one section. Now I'm going to spin the tree around just to make it easier for me. As the birds serenade us. I do the vast majority of my videos early in the morning when the sun has risen, so there's adequate light, but that it hasn't come up over the trees I have in the east, so we get nice diffuse light. If I wait too long and the sun comes up over the trees, then you get a shadow against the wall. And then if I want the shadow to disappear, then I have to wait till about noon. And even though right now it's actually, yesterday was the beginning of fall. So happy fall to the people in the northern hemisphere. If you live in the southern hemisphere, it's happy spring. Funny how it works like that, eh? So if I wait till noon so I don't get the shadow, then it's just too hot. At least where I'm at, we're still pushing 90 degrees for the high temperature. And it looks like Florida's going to get itself a hurricane here. But I'm too far south and to the east to really be affected by it. So I shouldn't have anything to worry about there, unless it suddenly takes some crazy turn. You know, I've lived in Florida for 45 years, 48 years. So I've been through my share of hurricanes, there's no doubt about that. And I've never really had trouble with my bonsai. They're easy enough to just bring inside, or even just putting them on the ground temporarily. Did it again, kicked the tripod. Trying to get the tripod as close as I can, but then the right upright of the tripod is right where I put my right foot. So, if I lived in California, I could tell you it was an earthquake. But it is not an earthquake. Oh, and we're getting such nice ramification. I mean, look at the ramification on this branch here. Just splits, and then it splits again, then it splits again, then it splits again, and that is exactly what I'm looking for in my bonsai. And even though that's the back branch, now this first main branch I actually grew from scratch. It didn't even exist when I first styled this tree. And it's a little bit too thick compared to the rest of the branches. But at this point, there's just not that much I'm going to do about that. And actually, I've left this little tuft of foliage to sort of hide just how thick the branch is. Sort of fakes your eye out. And this tree has very nice symmetry, an incredible nabari. I mean, the nabari on this thing is just absolutely crazy. But nerifolios do that, or salicarriers, or whatever it is. It was also sometimes called salicifolia, willow leaf ficus. because the genus of the willow tree is Salix, which is the source of salicylic acid. And if you're familiar with painkillers, you know that salicylic acid is the precursor of aspirin. Aspirin is actually acetylsalicylic acid. Trying to keep my hands from obscuring the view. And like I said, I'm not going for perfect defoliation where every single leaf is gone, but it's going to be pretty close. See, now you can really see the structure of the tree. What do I need to do? Do I need to bring this guy down, bring this guy down, you know, shorten some things? I think in the spring, it's been in this pot for many years, but in the spring all of the, now that it's bare, all of the branches could come down just a tiny little bit, like that, like that. And so even at this stage where you would call it a finished tree, there's still some refinement that you can do to keep the trees looking better and better and better and better. I'm also working on a new backdrop. I got some black cloth and I'm going to build a frame, because I've had some of my viewers that say that the stucco background is a little bit visually disturbing. So that's coming in the next couple of days. I'm going to build a frame, put the black cloth behind. It should. I did a couple just the other day with my blackboard that my daughter played with when she was a little girl. And I also have a piece of hardboard that's also black. But the hardboard has a lot of gloss, and neither of them are really large enough to create a solid background unless I'm doing like little Mame trees. Oh, and look at this, we have an air plant right there. That little guy right there. And some lichen. And I think that's an aerial root. It is, but I don't want aerial roots on this guy. So I take him off. So that's about it. Now you say, well, the apex really needs to come up like that. But remember, I'm using 2, 3, 4 limbs as the apex just to create that crown. So yes, now that it's defoliated, you could contend that the apex needs to come up like that. And then have these little tiny guys fill in over here. And as this tree ages and progresses, that can be part of the process. For today, I just wanted to do the defoliation. And I think that's pretty good. I watched a video from another bonsai person who featured a show in Indonesia with trees that were just unbelievable, hundreds of years old, 2-3 feet high, massive trunks. But some of them had been defoliated for the show, and some of the commenters said, some of these trees look dead. And of course, defoliation certainly doesn't kill the tree unless you're doing it constantly. Alright, so there we go. I've run out of time. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.